Hello and welcome to the Extreme Improv Skill Show. My name is David Postansky, and if you haven't listened before, then welcome. If you have listened before, welcome back. So on this episode of the Skill Show, I'm going to be discussing the short form improv game known as an alphabet scene or an ABC scene or just alphabet. And the basic rules of it are that you'll have two performers in a scene. There may be other variations where you have more, but I'll tell you later on why I don't think that necessarily works. And the two performers, they speak, and each time the next character speaks, so it bounces back and forth like a ping pong match. The next time the next character speaks, the sentence they say, the dialogue that they say, has to begin its first word with the subsequent letter of the alphabet. So, for example, if character A started, I'll say character 1 so it doesn't muddle up with the alphabet theme. But if character 1 started speaking, they might say, "Are you okay?" Because it begins with the letter A, the word A-R-E. Then character 2 might say, "But why do you ask?" And it begins with the letter B, but. Then it bounces back to character 1, who might say, "Can't you see I'm upset?" Followed by character 2 saying, "Don't talk to me like that," because it now begins with a D. "Every time, fine, get out of here, hello," and so on and so forth. So you get the idea. A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. So, what are the tips I would give you for successfully playing this game? The first tip I would give you is just go through your alphabet. Go through your alphabet when you're at home, when you're in the shower, when you're, can't sleep at night instead of counting sheep. Just go over your alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, excuse my voice, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Or if you're an American, Z. Don't know why we pronounce Z and Z differently. I actually think Z makes a lot more sense because you say... The only example I can think where we sort of change things up is we'll say, no, it's pronounced as zebra, not as zebra, but that's just a bizarre thing with that one word. But otherwise, everything, Zeus and zippity-doo-dah, zip, zap, boing, and so on and so forth. It's all pronounced just like, so it sounds like a Z rather than Z. We don't need the D on it. But anyway. I'm off my soapbox on the pronunciation between English and American letters of the alphabet. So, go over your alphabet. Once you've been over your alphabets and you've got it in your head, you'll notice that there are easy points in the alphabet which you can go into. Usually the LMNOP bit is quite an easy bit to, if you're midway through, because I've actually been playing this where you get up to like the letter T and someone gets confused and then you suddenly see them go... A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and they're having to start from the very beginning. And that's a mistake. So just think, so when you think A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, everyone puts that L, M, N, O, P as this little fast rolls off your tongue bit. So if you just start L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and so you can always start there. Or you can think, right, what comes after that? Q, R, S. And so just jump to that point. And then what I would say is one of the big rules or one of the tips with improv is listen like crazy. And I always expand on that to say that listening shouldn't just be literally hearing what the other person says. It should be visually listening. And I know that sounds silly, but if you just take the idea of listening to be being aware, watch what your scene partner does, take on board everything they're doing. The reason for this is that they might give you an offer, they might do something which you can incorporate into what you're doing, so you build upon something rather than it seeming like two separate scenes happening at the same time. So, of course you have to listen to your scene partner, but that doesn't mean that you can't have that tiny part of your mind just helping you out because you have a task, you have a goal to achieve here. So if I was character 2, if the first character says, aardvarks are invading the country and they're going to take over the world, as they're saying that, as soon as they said the word aardvarks, I can think in my own head. And not out loud, but I can think in my own head. A, B. Okay. And once whatever else they're saying, I'm listening, because I've now got B. Like, it's like B is an arrow, and I've put it in my bow, and I'm ready to shoot it off as soon as they stop speaking. So they say aardvarks, blah, 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 blah. I say, brilliant. I always loved the aardvarks. And so I can just be ready because I've thought A, B. And as soon as I have finished speaking, of course, I'm still going to be listening because they're going to say, Charlie, the aardvarks are terrible, whatever they're going to say. I have finished speaking and I can go B, C, D. And what I'm doing there to myself is I'm going B, because that's the letter I just said, C, because that's the letter that's about to be said, so that doesn't help me, D. And you can just queue up. So I get the arrow that is a letter D, and I put it in the bow so that once he's called me Charlie or whatever begins with C and continued a sentence, I'm ready to fire off the letter D. Now, you might think that there's an element there of not listening because you're queuing something up. You're only queuing up the letter. And here's the next big tip. Listen to what, I was about to say your opponent, could be if it's competitive, but your scene partner is saying, because they might say something you can pick up on. And here's a real pro tip for performing a successful alphabet scene. If you want to seem like it's flowing really well, incorporate what your scene partner says. And if they give you a word that begins with the next letter, then that will always sound really nice. So if it's about the aardvarks and I say, brilliant, the aardvarks are invading, and they say, Charlie, don't speak like that, I could come straight back in with, don't speak like that, I'm going to, or whatever. And it's taken the other player's words and made it into a correct next step and correct next move in this chess game. So, and that can apply to everything. So it could always flow like that. I'll see if I can give an example that continually flows. I don't know how far I'll get in, but you're just enough to give you the idea. So, aardvarks are going to battle with us. Battle with us. Cool down your boots. They won't do that. Cool down my boots. Demolish them instantly. Demolishing them will cause an emergency, you flipping idiot. Flipping idiot yourself. You've got to go out of here. Go out of here. And it sounds like you're just repeating, which obviously it is, because you wouldn't want a flow of this. That wasn't the best example, I apologise. But you get what I'm going for there. You wouldn't want a scene where every single sentence you just took half of the other person's sentence or a phrase they said or a word they said even. But when you do use it, it sounds cool, and it means that you can quickly build upon what the other person's saying by reincorporating the ideas they've said. Another thing you can do is use ideas from the themes of the scene. So if the scene, as for some reason I've now created, is something to do with aardvarks, then you can think, right, what other things associate to aardvarks? And that's a bit of a weird animal for me to have chosen, but they are obviously animals that are kept in a zoo, and what does it like? It's like an anti-tree armadillo kind of thing. I have no idea what an aardvark is. That was a terrible idea. But I assume they have paws rather than hooves. I don't actually know. And they might be furry, or they might not. But you get what I mean. So, okay, look, scrap the aardvark just for a moment. Say it was about a cat or a dog. So, cats and dogs, I could think kitten, I could think puppy, I could think paws, I could think walk, or walkers, you know what I mean? I could think fleas. So, dogs are everywhere they are. Fleas are getting all over us. Go for a walk and, And then howl at the moon and stuff like this. You just think of the words that relate to the subject matter that you've got. And if you can begin the sentences with some of these words, that will also seem clever and cool to your audience. It'll really make them enjoy and engage with what you're doing a lot more. Rather than, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with this, but if you were just going to, again, if I say it's about dogs this time, if you're going to say, are you aware that the dogs are planning a revolution? Bang, shoot them with a gun. Calm down, the dogs can hear us. Don't speak about dogs like that. And he's like, well, you didn't even begin like D with dogs. It's like, try and include some clever words, some associated words, some words from your scene partner into the beginning of your sentences. Anyway, these weren't good examples, but I'm just giving an idea here. This is always what I'm just trying to do, because I'm speaking about this very off the cuff. So it's true improv. The next thing I can say is, as I always say every single week now, make sure you use your space. Don't just stand there facing each other, like in profile to the audience, having a conversation. Do things in the space which give an audience the sense of the space that you're in. And it will also inspire other like actions and words and sentences if you start to feel like you're running dry. Also, remember that you only... Okay, so actually something I haven't mentioned here is that usually if you look at something like Whose Lines It Anyway, and I know so many other groups do this as well, including Extreme Improv, we do a few versions of this game, but I'm going to bite my tongue and only speak about the traditional alphabet scene just not to make it confusing. You usually have a 90-second time limit to complete this. And one of the reasons why that's good is because this is a game that has a definitive end. There are 26 letters in the alphabet, meaning there should be 26 sentences, or there might be a 27th where you end on the same letter you started on, so it has a sense of closure and goes full circle. Because you can also start at a different letter of the alphabet. You can ask your audience for what your scenario is, and then a letter of the alphabet for you to begin at and then get back to. In a sense, it gives a sense of added challenge, but it also just means there's always variety. It's not always going to be something starting at A and ending in Z. But with a 90-second time limit, not only does it give it a sense of going full circle and being a complete scene, but it also puts pressure on you, because even though it's like saying each sentence, it's each line of dialogue in reality has to begin with the next letter of the alphabet, because you might say more than one sentence. You could say something like, back to the aardvarks, you could say, aardvarks are invading the universe, what are we going to do? And that's aardvarks are invading the universe, full stop. New sentence, what are we going to do? Question mark. That's two sentences, but that's one line of dialogue if it was in a script. Now, I've played this with people where some people start like a mini monologue because they can't quite make their point, where they might be like, aardvarks are invading the universe, what are we going to do? We've only just recovered from the time that the centipedes were trying to crawl out from under the earth, and it's like 15 seconds are wasted just on the first letter. So don't do that. Try to be concise, try to be short and sweet. You know, doesn't mean you have to rattle through your words extremely fast, but sometimes a sense of urgency works well in these scenes. And as well as, you know, you'd run out of time. The other thing that's problematic with just having an open-ended version of this scene is that it loses the sense of challenge, because anyone can think of the next letter if they have long enough. If you go over to start miming that you're looking through a filing cabinet, you might be standing there going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. Oh, I want to do this. And it's like, wow, if, obviously not out loud, but if the length of time I was just counting through the letters of the alphabet was me just trying to think of it, that's a lot of hesitation, that's a lot of stalling to get through the scene. So try to avoid that if you can. Also, the other thing I'll say about, like, however, if you do it with a time limit or not, is this is, like, say, 26 or 27 line of dialogue scene. And within this, you still want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So make sure that you quickly establish, like the audience might tell you who your characters are. So if you're told, well, this is in Hogwarts, it's Harry Potter, the audience for the most part will know who they are and they'll be on board with it. If it's just that it's an activity, like you're working in an office, you're going to have to establish who the two characters are and try to do that within 3, 4, 5 sentences. From there, you want to be dealing with whatever the problem is that you're trying to solve. And by the end of it, even if it's on the final sentence only, but within the last 3 to 5 sentences, 3 to 5 lines of dialogue, you want to bring this to some sort of conclusion so that people know that the scene is wrapped up. And you can, if you've given yourself enough time, the last sentence, you might have a little bit more of a slow delivery to show that now we've reached the end. And you don't have to say the end, but you know what I mean. So it's like, and the car is fixed, and our tax return is done. You don't have to say it like this, but I'm just giving you a sense of, if you can wrap things up, people in the audience will be like, they did it. How long is left? And not of the show, but of the time limit that you had. So, there's some quick tips for a traditional alphabet scene. If you're noticing a little bit of an echo on today's episode, I do apologise. I'm recording this one live. I hadn't quite got the episode ready to upload for this week, so I'm having to record this one live. Currently, I'm in Pisa in Italy, and I was in Florence yesterday. So there's a little bit of an insight into where I am recording this episode from, so that you've been listening to this whole episode. And it was a special Italian episode, presented entirely in English and with nothing to do with Italy. Heck, whilst I'm at it, I may as well give a quick plug. If you only listen to this through podcasts, or if you're hearing it on YouTube or wherever, the Extreme Improv Facebook page or website, I'd encourage you, give it a little check to our travel vlog series, Jet Lagged and Loving It. That is Jet Lagged and Loving It. And currently I'm recording an episode of the travel vlog whilst out here in Italy. We've had all kinds over the last few weeks of California. We've got episodes coming up in Japan, in Tokyo and Kyoto, and we go to France and Poland and all these other places as well. So do give a little bit of love to Jet Lagged and Loving It. Also, check out any of the other Extreme Improv podcasts. There's the Skill Show, which is this one. There's the Chat Show, and there's Radio Rumble. So until next time, I'll wrap this one up here. My name is David Pustansky, which is spelled Pustansky. Do give us a like, follow, share on Twitter. Say some nice things. Give us a review if you enjoyed it. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye, Ziz.